Hello, everyone. This week on The Conversation with me, Jordan Brown, we'll be talking with Dr. Woods, who is the founding pastor of Life Changing Ministries in the city of San Bernardino. We're going to be talking about COVID-19 and how he and his network of pastors took the call to educate and provide testing sites and now vaccination sites for not only their congregants, but their communities. Life Changing Ministries is actively providing testing and vaccinations. Stay tuned to learn more. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Dr. Woods. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well. The sun is shining. I feel good this morning. I do.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah, so I'd love to get us started. Just tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do. I know we're going to be talking about COVID and vaccines a little bit today. So I would love for you to just introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Dr. Reginald Woods. I'm the pastor of Life Changing Ministries in San Bernardino, located near Cajon High School and Cal State San Bernardino. We're about a mile away, north end of San Bernardino. Been pastor of my church for a few decades, and I've been in this city for many moons. And so my father actually was the first African American elected to the school board in the 70s. So that's how far we go back in this city. And I'm privileged to be with everybody today, giving you a pastoral perspective. When COVID-19 hit last year, we all were scrambling. And at that time, of course, the governor and the president and the mayor of Los Angeles was speaking to the communities. And early on, they began to hint about synagogues, churches, and temples shutting down. And of course, when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, slow down. You're talking about that separation church and state, leave the church alone. That's kind of my first reaction as a pastor because I'm thinking, wait a minute, I know we got a little something going on because it's so new. But as I learned more and more about this pandemic, what it really was, because nobody knew. Politicians start blaming, but everybody kind of minimized it at the first because we just didn't know. Once I knew, once it was clear what this was, that this was real, no joke, and watching people in other countries at that time dying and caskets on the outside and countries scrambling what to do with dead bodies. And it was headed our way. And we were beginning to have cases. And once I saw the magnitude, I didn't need the government at that time to make a mandate. My own voluntary position was we need to shut down, not because anyone's telling us. It was my pastoral heart, God's heart, to protect our people. So we shut down back. Our last church service was March the 15th, as far as in service. And the next week on the 22nd, we started live streaming. Of course, all across the nation, there are certain churches, they already had live production going, but a vast majority of churches did not. We had done a little bit of it, so we had to scramble. And thank God for good people and faithful people and people that are savvy, tech savvy. And we were able to put our broadcast on and have done some for 50 plus years. A lot of them are young people, out there with their skills and just their heart. And it's been a blessing. Some pastors had to use just their cell phone going live on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So it was a challenge for churches. However, for me, from the very beginning, because of my athletic background, if you have an enemy, if you have an opponent, you got to get on the same page. So that was my mindset. This is not just my church, my city. This is global. And so I'm on board to help fight the enemy, because the sooner we defeat the enemy, the sooner we can go on life. So that's been my position from the very beginning. I know across the state and across the United States, all pastors didn't take that mindset. You hear pastors, all kind of churches did all kind of stuff. I was always against it. I just was. I publicly made that comment. The issue was not about the government or the governor reaching into the church. I felt like this is a pandemic. This has nothing to do with separation church and state. This has to do with killing this thing off so we can be able to go forward. So that's kind of my mindset. That's just my initial one. Any other question you have, I can tell you the things we did tangibly in terms of testing and vaccinating and things like that. But I just want to kind of introduce that. And I'll kind of hand it back to you, and you can let me know if you want more.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Woods. That was a wonderful introduction. You really gave me a full scope, cut through a couple of my questions. No, that was absolutely wonderful. And I have seen the way that churches have kind of had to seriously evolve over the past year or so. My grandmother sends us invites every single Sunday, St. Paul AME. We're live on Facebook. Come join, and we do. And it's interesting to see how things have changed within that sphere. And so I'm really curious about just you working within this space of trying to be, like you said, working against the enemy to really defeat COVID, because it's been so impactful. Now everyone that is alive right now has this shared memory and this shared experience of COVID. And I think that that's one thing that's really interesting. It did bring us together in some places and at some times and at some points, but I really think that right now people are so focused on, okay, let's get out of this, let's go back to normal. And I wonder, like, when we speak about normal, what is that? And then also just like, what are the next steps to life after COVID? I've been talking about, like, my little sister, for example, and all the people who are her age, 13 and in this middle school range, they're going to come back. And that's when you're first truly starting to socialize. And it's like, what happens when you go back to school and you've been at home for a year and you really haven't had a chance to socialize in person? Are they going to be able to have, are, are we going to see like a resurgence of, or like I guess, a pandemic of anxiety and social anxiety within our young kids because we're so afraid to just be around people now? Or are we going to, like, just completely, I've said this before, probably said this before on the show, but are we going to have the anxiety, or are we going to be like, come on, let's go back in full force? And I do believe that we'll get both of those things. And it's just
Probably
really,
both.
yeah, I think so. And I think even on the church circuit, it's going to be like that as well. Some people are going to want to stay online and be comfortable doing church from the home, and other people are like, I want my praise and worship in person, so I need
Right.
to go to church and I just need to be there in the crowd and just receive all those blessings on a very physical, grounding level. And yeah, so it's really interesting, and I would really love to know more. I know you were talking about the vaccine and talking about just like the safety precautions and things that you have changed and cultivated for the church. And I wonder, can you tell us more and share more about what Life Changing Ministries has done specifically to involve with the trying to get out of this pandemic? What has Life Changing Ministries done?
Okay, so when all this first went down, no one knew anything, but life goes on, right? So everyone start doing life in their own way. And because I'm associated with many of the pastors and leaders and politicians of our community, we begin to have a conversation behind the scene. The very next week after everything shut down, I began with several other pastors, do a 3 days a week, like a noontime devotion related to passing information about COVID-19 and then calming people's fears. Because as we look back, remember how everyone was afraid, everyone was hoarding supplies. So it was chaotic.
It
It
was.
was everyone was isolated in their home. No one knew how to act. So our job as a pastor was to get out to on weekly. People are learning Zoom. People didn't know about that technology and other technologies. And so we were spending time with the community in that initial phase, just talking with them. Hey, trust God, be safe. Here are the stats. Here are places you can get information. Eventually, I'm part of the Inland Empire Concerned African American Churches here in San Bernardino. Our organization, along with COPE, which Samuel Casey is over, we continue to have our meetings. No one knew that this was going to last as long. So we were envisioning going back to church somewhere, summer, maybe fall. That was just kind of the initial mindset. So we said, okay, before we go back, we got to make sure that people come back, safely. We began to partner with the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health. And with that coalition, we began to discuss and we set up some MOUs, and we began to go in partnership to do COVID-19 testing in our churches. So we did that as a service to our community because, as you know, in the African American community in particular, we had low testing rates, but high infection rates. Low testing rates, high infection rates. So this has been an issue in our community. So the county was pleased to be able to have us as partners, because at that time, the fight was find out if you have it and let's avoid it, but let's trace it. So that's what we started doing. So we started to do COVID-19 testing on our site. In this partnership, the county said, okay, once the COVID vaccination comes in, we probably also will partner with you to have COVID-19 vaccinations on your site. So we did COVID testing back last year. And then somewhere in the earlier part of this year, I'm looking on Saturday, March the 13th, we hosted our first vaccination clinic on our property. We had the Pfizer vaccination. Prior to that, give you some history about the church. Prior to that, we were also doing, I've been on so many Zooms, can't even count them, related to COVID-19 with whether it's pastors, politicians, church leaders, health officials. And they were asking pastors, when this vaccination comes out, we need you all to be champions and get out in front of this in your congregations. Understanding now, some pastors were hesitant themselves for the vaccination. So we had to get over that curve ourselves to be able to tell our communities that we believe it's a good thing to do. So with that, go ahead.
So thinking about, scared and just like this anxiety towards getting the vaccine, can you talk a little bit about the difference between types and maybe what would you say to someone who is afraid of the side effects of the vaccine and things like that?
So what we did, and I did, is since we're pastors, let's stay in our lane. So what we did is we invited other health people that in the profession on our platforms to communicate to our community. For example, there's an individual, some of you might know her, by the name of Dr. Jacinda Abdul Mutakabir over at Loma Linda. She has her doctorate degree in pharmacology, and she studied infectious disease control, went to Howard and other schools. And so we had her on platforms in the community. I had her on my church. So what we did is want to get out to our communities from a scientific standpoint to explain the vaccinations. And so I was able to understand how this vaccination came into existence, because people are thinking, well, how did it come so fast? What's really going on? And so I had them articulate the steps of why this is safe. And so with that, was able to learn the differences between the vaccinations. But our main goal was to have platforms like this to communicate to our members and the community on what the vaccinations are, what they're not, how they're made, what they do, what they don't do. Because people are thinking, if I get this in my body, what's going to be not only the short-term effects, but the long-term effects. So I have medical professionals share that, and we just provide the platform.
That's awesome. I think that that's a really great intersection as well, thinking about, putting church and health together, because I think a lot of times when people think about how the church operates, it's of course very faith-based and very prayer-based, but also at the same time, we're fighting a very physical virus. And so I really appreciate that you are taking a physical solution as well. I mean, of course, we have to pray. Of course, we have to have our faith and hope, and to really believe that we're going to get out of this, because spiritually, I believe that, there's a lot that we can do to keep us safe on the inside and keep us protected. But then, as soon as I had the opportunity to get the vaccine, I grabbed it, and I've been fully vaccinated for about a month now, and it has just, almost 2 months now, and it's just been really interesting. A lot of people have been asking me, how did I feel? And I guess I had the time to explain that right now so our viewers can have an example. I got the Moderna vaccine early February and the second vaccine early March. And when I got the vaccine, it was just this very um, interesting muscle pain in my arm. And then I was feeling really lethargic for maybe 2 days. And then after that, I was fine. And I was fine up until the second one. And the second one, I didn't have as many reactions and symptoms. I was more so like feeling these body aches and feeling that muscle pain again. But it was a process that was extremely worth it. I definitely feel more safe to just go out into the world. Of course, I still take my precautions. I think one thing that I will say is that I know that like a lot of people use the vaccine as an excuse to no longer wear the mask and no longer social distance. But personally, I think that, to make myself comfortable and to make others comfortable, you never know who's vaccinated. And so I think it's really important to make sure, when you're out in these public spaces, wear your mask. When you're out in these public spaces, make sure you're still social distancing, because if you're doing that, you're not only protecting yourself, but you're protecting the community. And I think that that is really, really integral to this entire thing, because like you said earlier, this is something that's global. And that means we have to be a global community, which is not something that humans have a good track record at. And so I'm really hoping that this is something that will allow us to cultivate somewhat of a global community. I don't see it right now, but in some cases I do, in very small samples. And it's really interesting to me what might come next after this. And I don't know. I really hope that this experience brings so many humans just closer to each other, so we can start off on the right track.
That's good. I know you're the interviewer, but may I ask you what was your mindset? Why'd you take it? I mean, what you had to go through hoops yourself. Why were you comfortable to take it?
Yeah, so I was comfortable to take it. My mother works in hospice, and she went to a workshop there was a bunch of like Black women doctors, and they went through in detail what each vaccine was and what's in the vaccine and how the vaccine works on a very scientific level, but brought it down so me, not a medical doctor, can understand it. And that process, that event, really helped me like have a grounding understanding of what the vaccines are and what they do. And then I also think about it in this way. We have to get vaccines to go to school. We have to get vaccines to travel to certain countries. And if I want to travel to such and such place, of course I'm going to be willing to get the vaccine. I don't want to get sick while I'm out. Like, you have to get the vaccinations to go to school. So it's like, well, I got to go to school, so I'm going to go ahead and get the vaccine. I don't want to get like polio and all the other things.
Right, right,
So
right, right.
that's really what it was for me. I had that moment of being educated and had the education, had access to the education about the vaccines. And I think more people are starting to widely see information and just education about the vaccine. Specifically, there's been like a lot of like really easy to digest like TikTok videos about, and some creators have been making these TikToks about how the vaccine works, and just using a very like visual language to explain this, what seems as a very complicated thing. And then people are like, oh, well, if that's how it works, then I feel comfortable doing that. And I do believe that with like everything, there is going to be risk, but I feel like the reward is so much greater than any risk. And it's like, if me having a vaccine can stop anybody that I come into contact with from getting COVID from me, or just like having that extra layer of protection, I think it's necessary.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. The interesting thing is knowledge is important. The Bible says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." So knowledge is important, and I shared as a pastor in my local church and in the community. two things about this vaccine. Number one, the Bible said we should not walk in fear. So to Christians, don't walk in fear. But at the same time, the Bible talks about wisdom. So let's approach this thing by not walking in fear, but use wisdom. Wisdom to social distance, wisdom to wash your hands, wisdom to wear a mask, wisdom to follow medical experts. Yet don't walk in fear. The interesting thing, I don't know if you're finding this out, but we're hearing this now. When this vaccine first came out, all the people that really wanted it were flocking to get it. But all of a sudden now, we're starting to see that the demand is not that high because we're hitting that resistant pocket of people that either are still feel fearful, ignorant, stubborn, or I don't know what the other word would be. And that's what we're starting to hit right now, because I know people in my church. I would call them when we have vaccinations, say, hey, there's some extra vaccination. Come down and get it. Oh, we're cool, Pastor. We all right. Thank you. Some would.
I've hit that before too. But I think people just need to take their own personal liberty to educate themselves and to make sure that they feel comfortable, because at the end of the day, you can't force anyone to get the vaccine.
Right.
So you
sure.
have to just give them the information that they need to be able to decide that for themselves. And I've seen people that were resistant to getting the vaccine at first, and then they saw me get it, and they saw a couple of the other friends get it, and now they're open to it. And so it's really interesting to kind of see that development of feeling comfortable and feeling safe, because maybe it's just like, well, I don't want to get the flu vaccine because I heard the flu vaccine makes you sick. And I don't want to get the COVID vaccine because I heard the COVID vaccine makes you sick, and I don't want to feel like that. So it's okay. So I'm just not going to get it. And we go through, we hear a lot of that. But at the end of the day, my little 2 days, my little 3 down days in bed, I would take that over getting COVID. So I feel confident about it. And I hope I hope other people will too. Yeah. I mean, it's a new substance that's literally shot into your body, so your body has to adjust to it. So yeah, and I will say, I hear that some people's shots were painful, but mine was painless. That was like the easiest shot I've taken in my entire life. I was like bracing for it, and then the nurse, and I was like, I felt like air. It was the
so, mine the same thing.
Yeah. It was really nice and easy. So I wonder, I guess a question to you, since we've been talking about, getting this education about the vaccines, what would you say to my viewers? What's the best way to gain a better education about COVID and about the COVID vaccines?
Well, if you watch TV, for the news channels, they forever have someone come on and explain. Check with your pastor, check with local organizations that have already done some information. There's all kind of sources. Really the question, because even in my church, when I brought on medical experts and announced it, not everyone participated. Matter of fact, it wasn't as many people as I thought. I think there's a group of people out there who just, I don't know what it is. The information is available. If they really want it, the information is there. We can point them, but the question is, will they go to it? That's really more my question more than anything. Especially now, I at the very beginning, I understand the hesitancy at first. We had a whole seminar on pastors asking, how do we deal with our congregations when it comes to this COVID? I said, don't worry about it, because it's those that are wanting to wait and see, because that was kind of, I'm gonna wait and see what happens to you before I take it. Don't worry about that, because the first people that are gonna get the shots are gonna be the first responders, the people that are already out on the front line. So they'll have plenty of time to watch and wait and see if that's gonna be their approach. So now, after millions of people being vaccinated, what's the deal now, right? Mm-hmm. What's the deal now? So the information's out there, Jordan.
Yeah. And I've been watching the news a little bit recently, and it really saddens my heart that the world is not on this global community space that I've been talking about, because we have in the United States, we have the power to release these vaccines to other countries who need it, but instead, some of these corporations would rather profit than share the vaccine with countries who can't pay for it. And that really hurts my heart, because people are going to die because of it. People are really going to get sick, and people are going to have so many just complications because of that. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't feel like I have any power in that situation, and it just is disheartening. And before we go, I really want to ask, is there anything you'd like to say as a pastor, any encouraging words that you have for those who have endured so much during the past year, and those who are going to continue to endure so much?
Well, we have endured a lot. And for those of us that have made it through this, because there's been a lot of people that have been affected. I know people that have been infected. I know people that have been hospitalized. I know people that have had it very severely. I know people that have died. So for those of us that remain living, let's thank God, right? First of all. Second of all, let's show compassion and embrace those who lost someone during this time. My father actually died, not from COVID, but during this whole time. And it was terrible. I mean, this COVID-19 is going to be like other people's Pearl Harbor, where you look back and think, wow, where was I when I heard the news, and talk about life before, during, and after Pearl Harbor. We'll go back and talk about this for years to come, what happened back then. My father died first part of January, and so that was right during the spike. And so as a result, his body stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. And it was 2 months before we could actually bury him. And we couldn't even be there for the whole week that he was in the hospital. Mm. So every one of us has some kind of COVID-19 experience, and some people more severe. So let's thank God we have made it through it and embrace those who did not. And one last thing, I'm not sure your time frame, but we're doing COVID-19 testing on our campus every Friday, yes, every Saturday. Life Changing Ministries, every Friday, every Saturday, from 8 a.m. to 2:30. It's free. Self-swabbing, results within 24 hours. So anybody is feeling symptoms, been around somebody with COVID, needed to travel, needed for job verification, needed because they want to go watch the Lakers, okay? You can come to our church for that testing. So if you know someone, send them our way. And then also, and then one last thing, this coming Wednesday, we're doing the Johnson & Johnson shot from 10 to 2 on our campus. So we're in this thing still as a church, and I'm not the only pastor, but we're in this. I want the community to know that we're in this as clergy to help our community get through this. We're in this.
Yes, thank you so much. That's absolutely amazing. This has been incredible work that you're doing and continue to do. One question for you. I know that a lot of the COVID testing places are drive-through only, to the point where they won't even accept walk-ups. I've had to deal with that myself. Do you accept walk-ups, or do you need a card?
Walk-ups. No pre-registration. Just walk right on up. All you need is a photo ID. You'll be in and out in 10 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Woods. This has been incredible. You have completely shed a light on this issue, and I hope that people will be more willing to go get the vaccine after viewing our conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much. And tell all your family I said hello.
I will. All right. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. All right. Bless you.
That was such an insightful conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well. We are trying to educate and inform our viewers on what are these next steps within this pandemic. And with that, if you would like to learn more about Life Changing Ministries and learn more about this YouTube channel and what the Black Voice News does, you can go to the description link below. Go to blackvoicenews.com to learn more. And don't forget, as always, to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week. Peace out.